everyone. For those who do not recognize me, my name is Dominic. I lead the advanced planning here for our team at Baird. We wanted to connect our clients here with a specialist because we see a certain scenario all the time with parents and their children who are starting to look for school. So we wanted to connect here and really start to go through because we've seen some parents have a hard time navigating which college to find for their children, how to navigate the landscape of financial aid, and what do you do if your children don't even have an exact career path to start going down. So here's where we would really like to utilize Aaron and his team. And so please, if you could, Aaron, start to introduce yourself and your company.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Aaron Greene. I'm with Pathfinders, College and Career Advisors. What we do is we work with families on planning for college, academically, financially, the whole nine yards. Everything from helping a student figure out what they want to study, what they want to do, as Dom mentioned, to finding the schools that academically do that best based off of job placement rates, starting salaries, then finding the money, making sure we're not overpaying for college and finding scholarships, particularly in non-need based scenarios. We'll talk about that today. And then also making sure the fit's right, making sure students comfortable where they are, because if they're not comfortable, they're not going to do. So we like to view it holistically and how to get the best return on investment for the student's education.
Well, great. So as you're looking through these services, how do you typically work with families?
Sure. So it's usually uh, somewhere around a 2-year engagement. So long story short, we like to start with our families mid sophomore year through junior year. We even start with some seniors as well. But the goal is to really be able to work with them throughout every aspect of the college planning process. So that beginning stage is the heavy career development stuff. That's honestly like 60-70% of what I do all day is career development work with the kids. And that's helping the student really figure out what it is they want to get into and what they want to study. I could spend an hour talking about that, but that is the crux of the whole thing.
Okay, if we start to look through the process that you take these families with, can you walk me through what that process looks like?
Sure. So uh, let's just say we're starting right now with the family as a junior. This is the beginning of the school year, which is the perfect time to start. So we would be spending that first, I'd say, 4 or 5 months just doing career development work, which is really honing in on the particular major of interest and the particular schools that do it well. We have an interesting process that kind of combines both of those things at once, so we can knock out two birds with one stone, in order to figure out what the student wants to study and how to really use that as the measurable to find the schools that do it best. So that way we're building a school list. Once we do that, simultaneously, we're starting to work on ACT and SAT tutoring and getting through all the necessary pieces for that. You want to take those both late fall, early winter of your senior year, to get a feel for them. You don't need to take them. That won't be the only time you take them. That'll be the first time you take them. So there's no reason to really dive into studying too hard or getting too heavy into the test prep process, because we just want to set a parameter to see how well the student tests. So we'll do that. We're going to take it again at the end of the junior year, and they'll probably be offered a version of that in the springtime of the junior year as well from the high school that the student's going to. So once we exit out of that, we get through the career development stuff. Now we started honing in on the school list that we have. Then it's time to start visiting schools. So then we can actually start putting together a school list to go visit. We like to have you visit 4 to 6 schools. That's about the sweet spot. And there's no reason to visit them until you've researched them. Otherwise, we're just chucking darts at them. So you want to make sure you have a good concentrated list of schools ready to go to visit that make the most sense based off of everything the students already studied. Now we're hitting the spring time frame of the child's junior year. That's when some brass tacks-esque type of things need to start working at. Need to start getting into the process, such as like getting letters of recommendation requested, uh, getting your finalized draft, your resume put together, holding in the final school list now that you've visited some schools, getting all those parts done. So that way, once we get into the summer of the rising senior year, the summer between junior and senior year, we can start working on application. Application season really starts in June. We start essay writing with them right away. So we get the essay prompts for Common App, which is the main college application portal that's used nowadays. We get the college essay topics in January or February. So that way we can actually have them start writing on that in June and be well ahead of the curve. And especially if the kid plays a fall sport, we want to make sure that we can get as much pre-work done as we possibly can. So that's what we're working on in June, along with retaking the ACT and SAT, or one or the other. You don't have to retake both. So that way, when August 1st hits, we're starting on applications. And early is the name of that game. Early to admissions and early to money. Think of both as pool. The shrink as time goes on. So as early as we can to both. So that way we can make sure that we're getting through all those things by their early action deadlines. If you have any questions on what early action versus early decision versus regular decision means, please, by all means, email me. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But the long story short, the early action deadlines for a school typically are right around November 1st. I make sure that all of our seniors have everything done by October 15th. That way we're well ahead of those deadlines. We're getting those things, all the components are in. It's something that's just completely off our plate, especially for our fall sport folks. We need to be even ahead of that time frame. So that way we've gotten through that. Then after that, it's kind of a waiting game. We're just working on outside scholarships here and there, doing a couple of those. You start hearing back from schools around Christmas. You start getting scholarship offers around Martin Luther King Day. Then, interestingly enough, you go back and forth with them and you actually negotiate to get more. And you'll find that 2 or 3 of your schools won't do anything for you, but 2 or 3 of them will. And at that point, we've already done all the work. The students already figure out career-wise which way they're going. Academically, they've got the right schools on the table, otherwise they wouldn't be there. They visit the campus, make sure they're comfortable, negotiate the money to make sure we have the right deal on the table, sign down a line by May 1st of the child's senior year, and we're good to go.
Yeah. What are some of the broad impacts? We've heard of stories of, companies like yourself helping students choose what college to go based on career paths. What are some just impacts you've seen by going through this process from a financial standpoint?
Good question. If you do it right, good.
Yeah.
To give you an idea of where we sit and how we've done on the financial front, I've worked with a little over 1,500 clients over the past 14, 15 years, and we've saved them over $120 million in higher educational expenses just for 1,500 families. In fact, we measure how much our families save on an annual basis compared to the national college average, not to the college cost per year. So when we look at the actual cost of college on an annual basis, when you factor tuition and room board books, state, out of state, private, public, the national average is right around $38,500 a year. That's how much the average family spends on college on an annual basis. The average family that we've worked with has spent $15,500. And there's no magic pill to it. It's just by doing all the steps right and finding schools, particularly with money, in non-need based scenarios. So the families we work with and the families we're saving the most amount of money for are middle income to high net worth families, where need is a part of the formula base there. So we're working with families that are doing fairly well, but at the same time, they don't want to spend everything they have on sending their kids to college either. To the point where my perspective on the cost of college isn't that it should be based off the sticker price or off of what you save. It should be based off the value of the degree in it. So the long story short, if you have, in fact, this is our rule of thumb, the student should take on no more than half of their anticipated annual salary in debt based off the future career path that they choose. The parent contribution should be no more than twice that number. What that means is if you walk out making $40,000 a year in a particular career path, the student can afford $20,000 in total debt for that degree. The parent should be affording no more than $40,000 in total over 4 years for that degree. You add those two up, the rest of the money after that should be coming in the form of scholarship money for the student, which is why understanding this part of this game is so important. We have to really be able to break down, and this is the key here, looking at endowment sizes versus student population. That creates this interesting correlation between how much money the school has to spend per capita, per kid. And this varies wildly depending on the school. So I'll give you an easy example of a local one, where we can look at like an Otterbein versus a Denison is a good example of this, where they're both roughly the same size. They're both like 5,000 students roughly. Otterbein has a $99 million endowment fund, which sounds decent. Denison has a $1.2 billion endowment for the same amount of kids. Their cost is actually $20,000 more per year than Otterbein, but their net cost after everything is all said and done is $10,000 less. So we end up finding these scenarios all over the place. The beauty and the curse of this whole system, it's a beauty for us, it's a curse for the average person doing it on their own, is that there's 4,600 schools in the U.S. So it's a great thing for us because it gives all this choice to be able to sift through and all these scenarios to be able to wade through in order to find the best one for our family. It's kind of a curse for an average person doing it on their own. It's just too much. It's almost like buying a house on your own in a new area or a new part of the country you're moving to. It's virtually impossible. In fact, I routinely say, name something you spend $80,000 to $200,000 on, and you don't get a professional to do it. That's how you have to think of this college.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a great point. There's so many complexities to it. Kind of going a little bit deeper on that subject. Are you able to talk just a little bit about the difference between merit aid and financial aid versus need-based aid, for example?
Absolutely. So there are multiple types of aid buckets. There's merit aid, and gift aid, which are the same things. There's need-based aid, and then there's internal scholarships, external scholarships. How does that all work together? Starting with the need-based aid. The need-based aid is strictly what it's money that's given for a situation where there's a big financial need for the family. Now, in order to qualify for need-based aid, you're going to have to be pretty low on the financial totem pole to do that, to qualify for that. You do the FAFSA, and if the FAFSA comes back with anything from $0 to $6,000 per year, then you qualify for what's called a Pell Grant. That's like the families we work with most of the families in the U.S., they're not going to qualify for need-based aid. Now, that's not to say don't do the FAFSA. The FAFSA is interestingly enough, for some schools, you can't get merit-based aid from the school unless you do it as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. So you can not do it, but you run the risk of not getting anything at all. So I always just say, just do it. It's no harm, no foul. It takes about 20 minutes, to be honest with you. It's not a hard document to fill out, especially now. And that way we just have, it doesn't matter how much money you make, just do it. We'll be in good shape. Merit-based money is money that's coming from that endowment pool that we were talking about. And it's money that's given typically for grades and for academic strengths for a student. Then there's another pool of money, which is just called gift aid, which is similar to merit aid. It can be given for grades and things like that. But honestly, a lot of times it's just given to the family because they want the kid to be there. So when we go through and let's say we have a school that's giving a student, it's a private school or a public school, it doesn't matter, a scholarship when they get through admission. So let's say they apply to the school, they get in, they'll give you an initial scholarship. Truth be told, money doesn't typically stop there. What you'll want to do is just wait it out. And then you negotiate for that last bit of extra money. Some schools will do it, some schools won't. It just depends on the school, depends on the school year a lot of times. And then you'll just want to go through and they'll actually start adding in scholarships just for the sake of it in order to get you to come there. A good example is Capital here in Columbus, Ohio, where it's a pretty simple conversation with Capital at this point that I have with my clients and with Capital, where we'll provide them with all the other offers that they're getting from all the other schools. And this is also why you apply to never just apply to one. You always want to create enough competition in the pool in order for the other schools to see what you're actually doing. Um, they'll actually take in those other offers, look at what they're giving you, and then bump up their actual offer up a couple $1,000s, and they'll throw it in as a particular scholarship or a grant. Or, truth be told, I don't really care what it's called. That's so long as it's free money. So that's where you get the, the gift aid from. So you have those three terms: financial need, merit, and gift aid. We're more concerned with the latter two for our families to make sure we're getting those. Those are all three of those are called internal scholarships. That's monies that come directly from the universities. External scholarships come from sources outside of the university, so like outside sources. So like from the Coca-Cola Scholars Program, something along those lines, a Delaware County uh, foundational scholarship. And this is super important to know, the vast majority of money you get for college will always come from the universities. 90+% of the money you get for college will come from the universities themselves in the form of that internal scholarship base. Very little comes from outside sources. Outside consent on the schools you're applying to, make sure they have strong endowment structures versus student populations. That's something that's fundamental to us as a practice to make sure that's the case for our clients. And then once that whole application process is done, then we turn our attention to external scholarships, because truth be told, there's nothing else for the kid to do except for wait.
It's a very fair point. I mean, it's just a lot to know in
Yeah.
this realm as we're talking about finances. Could you please just give a brief explanation of like the different types of loans that students could get?
Sure. So the most standard student loan you can get, the base one that everybody gets in the U.S., is from the FAFSA. Once you do the FAFSA, you get the standard Stafford student loan, and it comes either subsidized or unsubsidized, or both. It could be a mixture of both. And it's valued every year, at least as a freshman, at $5,500. It goes up a little bit per year after that, about $500 per year. The That is a fixed interest rate loan, and I think right now it's somewhere between 4 and 6%. I can't recall exactly what it's sitting on today, but somewhere between 4 and 6%. And it's the only, and this is super important to know, it's the only student loan you can get strictly in the kid's name only. Everything else you get has to be co-signed by a parent or guardian. So that's the one that you basically get automatically. That just shows up in your financial aid package so long as you do the FAFSA. But again, it's kind of a low amount. It's only $5,500. So for an in-state school, that's like a 25% of that. For a private school, it could be barely 10%. It just depends on what type of school situation you're looking at. The next step up is called a Parent Plus loan. That's really the next loan that you can get. And it is what it is. It's a parent signed loan that's co-signed. You can co-sign it with your student. And it can match basically the entire of the financial aid package, or an entire cost structure of that university. So if the school costs $29,000 a year, you can get a Parent Plus loan worth $29,000 in total. So we'll match that. The problem for it, well, there's pluses and minuses to it. I'll go over the pluses first. The pluses for it is that it's a fixed interest rate loan through the Fed. So you know where it's coming from, you know where it originates from, and you know that it's fixed. The problem for it is it's a high rate. It's like 9%. It's incredibly expensive for them. It's still, I won't say better, but it's something to definitely consider versus getting a private student. Private student loans come from banks. They used to be offered everywhere. They've been really limited now since the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. For an easy reason, there's no backed asset. So you can't there's nothing to back a student loan, unlike when you buy a house or a mortgage, you have a house to back it. There's nothing behind a student loan. So very few offer it. And the problem for them is that you can't really find fixed interest rates for them. They're all variable. They've been variable for years. So you're subject to whatever the market situation is in that particular time frame. So that could be a big problem. The only ones that I would really go after, and this is if you have to go the private student loan route, I would take a look at credit unions. Credit unions typically offer the best overall rates and the best overall situations for that family. So if you're involved in a credit union, or if you're not involved, you may want to get involved with one. They definitely are the best source for student loans.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're looking at this is a lot to take in for families, especially if they feel like they're a little bit late in the process. So you've kind of alluded to this earlier in the conversation, but if someone has someone that is just now becoming a senior in high school, is it too late, or how would you help walk them through this?
It's never too late to do it right.
Yeah.
It's never too late to do it right. I've taken on seniors that are in like February of their senior year. And we've got limited options,
Yeah.
but we still have some. It's better than none. So it may be a little bit more of an unorthodox pattern, but um, we still have options to be able to do this right. At this point in the senior year, no, it's not too late. In fact, I've started several seniors in the past week in our process, um, because they need to just get started, and they may not know what they want to study. Um, that's totally fine. I prefer them to kind of actually walk in that way, because again, that's so much of what we do is just the career development work. Because then it's about finding the schools that do that, and it's not too late to do that because early action deadlines still aren't until the end of next month. So we've still got a month and a half before that hits. So we've got plenty of time there. So we want to layer some things in. So if I'm starting a senior right now, we're doing some career development work. We're starting on applications because there's a lot that you can actually do to in the application realm before you even know the schools you're going to apply to in common. So there's a lot of work we can actually get done, along with working on their main college essay. So we can layer all this stuff in all at once and doing it all at once, so that way we can catch up with everybody else. So long story short, it's not too late.
Oh, I mean, that's so great to hear because I'm sure a lot of parents and students feel alone kind of going through this process just because how complex it is. And you've talked about such a broad, topic range on this. And so we really appreciate your thoughts here. And so what would a financial commitment be to have a student walk through this process?
Sure. So it depends on what we're doing for you, to be honest with you. Our typical retainer, we structured over months that we're working with you. So it's usually somewhere between $200 and $300 a month, something like that, um, for a duration of about 2 years, something along those lines. Uh, that's typically the setup. Um, all in all, it's usually about a $5,900 commitment, but we're saving our families about $96,000 over the cost of their educational paths. So hopefully it's worth the value. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge benefit, especially given some of these scenarios that you've talked about, helping them navigate exactly which school based on the different aids and kind of walk through that. So we really appreciate your thoughts here today. Did you have any closing comments that you would like to make?
yeah, just, don't think that you have to do this alone. For some reason, as a society, we've deemed this process as something that parents have to walk their kids through by themselves. When, again, we don't buy anything of that magnitude without professional guidance. You don't buy retirement without going to a financial advisor. You don't buy a home without going through a realtor. Same setup for this. This is literally the same cost magnitude. This hundreds of thousands of dollars in asset buying that we're doing here with college. Make sure you consult professionals with it. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to guide you through. You do not have to do this alone.
Well, hey, we really appreciate your thoughts today. And if anyone has any topics they would like to engage with Aaron or walk through this process, please reach out to me, and I would love to connect you and your family with Aaron. And please just let us know if you need anything, and if not, just take care, and we'll talk next time.
Awesome. Sounds great.